These are countries that may no longer exist. Starting things off, we have Catalonia, and Catalonia is currently a part of Spain. Catalonia has been fighting for their own independence in Spain for years now, and they even held a vote in 2017, but Spain said, no, 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 you're not leaving. In Catalonia, there is Barcelona, and Barcelona is obviously a massive part of Spain, but Catalonia don't want to be a part of Spain anymore, so they might become their own country. In Catalonia, they have their own language, which is Catalan, they have their own culture, and they have a booming economy. And I've been to Spain, and I've also been to Catalonia, and I'm not gonna lie, they feel like two completely different countries. But Spain wants to hold on to Catalonia, but Catalonia does not want to be a part of Spain anymore, so therefore it might become its own new country in the next 10 to 20 years. Next up, we have Scotland and the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom may not be a thing for much longer. In 2014, Scotland held an independence vote where they voted to leave the United Kingdom, but they voted no, but it was very, very close. 55% of the Scots chose to remain as a part of the UK, so 45% chose to leave, so it's only a 10% difference. But now with Brexit and how much the UK has changed, Scotland don't want to be around for much longer. So Scotland could become its own independent country. The Scottish National Party want a new referendum and a new vote to get their own independence away from the UK, and if this actually happens, we could see the fall of the United Kingdom. And in my opinion, I think in the next decade, Scotland is going to be its own new country. Now heading into North America, we have Quebec. Quebec is obviously in Canada, and most Canadians speak English. However, in Quebec, they speak French. It's like a completely different country. They nearly became independent in 1995. However, they did not become independent, but a lot of people who live in Quebec actually want to become independent now. Could you imagine Quebec without Canada or Canada without Quebec? I think that's crazy. But it does make sense because they speak a completely different language and their culture is completely different. And now one of the most politically sensitive topics, we have Taiwan. Taiwan is self-governed, it's democratic, and it's very economically strong. However, China claim it to be a part of its territory. And Taiwan have been fighting for proper independence because some countries don't recognize Taiwan to be a country. The United States of America supports Taiwan and it wants its independence, but it's reluctant to say it's not a part of China. And this is why people think it might become its own country soon, because the United States of America might help Taiwan out in becoming its own independent body. But honestly, I can't see China letting go of Taiwan that easily, so this one might be a bit far-fetched, but we'll see. I would love to see Taiwan become its own official country. North and South Korea. Now, these two countries have obviously had a war together, the Korean War, which was absolutely catastrophic, but could they become one country, or could it become one country invading the other? Technically, the Korean War started in 1953. However, they didn't sign a peace treaty, they signed an armistice. Now, this means the war isn't technically over because the peace treaty hasn't been signed, but it is. It pretty much means it's like a formal agreement between both countries to stop fighting, but it doesn't necessarily mean the end of the war. Now, while the reunification of North and South Korea is very unlikely, it cannot be ruled out. As we can see in recent times, North Korea has been taking in more tourists into their country to show around North Korea, so it could be in the next few decades that both North and South Korea make up, kindle their differences and become one country once more. And to be honest, a reunified Korea would be an absolute powerhouse militarily. I mean, North Korea have nukes, South Korea don't, so you put them together and bang, you've got a beautiful military. But I doubt they'll get along. Now, moving on to Greenland, this has been up in the air for months now. Greenland could become a part of the USA, Greenland could become its own country, or Greenland might stay a part of Denmark. Greenland has a population of 56,000 people and its capital is Nuuk, N-U-U-K, and it's geographically part of North America, but is politically tied to Europe. And Denmark controls its foreign affairs, its defense, its currency, its security policy, so it's a part of Denmark. However, the United States of America want Greenland, but some people in Greenland want independence. So there's three countries fighting for the same thing. Basically, Denmark colonized Greenland back in 1721, and then in 1953, Greenland became integrated as part of Denmark. But then in 2009, Greenland achieved self-rule, so it controlled its own borders and pretty much became its own sort of country. But the United States of America want Greenland because it's such a good location to put a military base. And Greenland is so close to the Arctic that it's seen as the future of the Arctic, because it's that close, it'll be so easy to explore the Arctic because it's so close to it. And Greenland also has a lot of rare minerals and metals on their country, and obviously whenever the USA hears that, they're flying over, bombing you and taking over your country. I'm praying to God that Greenland don't find oil, because if they find oil, they're getting invaded. Moving on to Hong Kong and China, and similar to Taiwan, Hong Kong wants to be its own country, however, it's technically a part of China. In 2019 to 2020, there were protests to make Hong Kong its own country, saying there's one country but two different systems, so they want their own sort of independence. But China quickly shut this down and suppressed all protests. And many of the activists now have been jailed or exiled. So as much as Hong Kong want to become their own country, it looks very unlikely because China just won't allow it. And it's not even the fact that all people from Hong Kong want their own country, they just want a bit more independence. But if they say that, they're getting exiled or chucked in prison, so that might not be happening. California has the 5th largest economy in the world, which is absolutely crazy, but California actually wants to break away from the United States of America, which in my opinion will be a very bad mistake. With most people in California not liking the president, being Donald Trump, and not liking some of the things he's doing, the cultural differences, there is movements like Cal Exit wanting California to exit the United States of America and therefore become its own country. But this is very unlikely because you're just not allowed to do it. I highly doubt it's gonna happen, but I know they would want it to happen in California if they could get it to happen. But seeing them leave the United States of America would just be very, very unlikely. And then there's Hawaii, who also want independence because they were illegally overthrown by the United States of America in 1893. So people living in Hawaii want their land back and want their country back, so they're starting movements to try and make Hawaii their own country again. And I think that would be awesome, having Hawaii, which to be fair is nowhere near America, have its own little country. That would be sick. But that's about it. These are countries that might become new countries or countries that existing merging together. I hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and let's try and get to 1,500 likes. Leave a comment whilst you're at it. Oh, and bye.